Thank you, Mr. Holland. Thank you to all of our witnesses here this morning. As I mentioned after the chief's testimony, I think we would all agree we've got to figure out how we stop this fire borrowing, because when we're talking about how we deal with treatment, how we work to mitigate the risk here, it takes dollars, and when you've spent all of your dollars on the suppression, it doesn't leave you much room for further opportunity there. The concern here is that these suppression costs are out of control. And Chief, I know you are very supportive of a wildfire cap adjustment, but from what we've heard from just about everybody here this morning, it's not necessarily the silver bullet to address the skyrocketing costs of wildfire suppression spending. So how we deal with that is something that I'd like to focus on this morning. Both you, Mr. Hallen, and Mr. Isley, to a certain extent, have described the hazardous fuel reduction projects that are critical to protecting, whether it's the watersheds that you've noted, the Cragen watershed, or just other areas there. The comment that you make, Mr. Hallen, that we know what it is that we need to do, and yet we can't get to that point, 2 to possibly 3 years to implement. We talk a lot about this analysis paralysis around here, where we have endless process and again, a policy of, we hope that there's not going to be a lightning strike that is going to bring about disaster here. So Chief, can you speak to this? I mean, are we in a situation where we're more worried about kind of checking the boxes here in making sure that we've gone through a critical process, or are we acting with a level of urgency that I think you've heard from everybody here at this table with regards to these critical projects that will help us from the preventive perspective? Because I think we would agree that if we can prevent these in the first place, we can get a hold, or we can get a better handle on these suppression costs. What's our problem here with the process that seems to be slowing things up when we're dealing with treatment of hazardous fuels?
Madam Chair, one of the issues
You got the, there you go.
Madam Chair, one of the issues we've dealt with in the past is needing to do a large enough project where it actually makes a difference. And that's where we've moved to taking a more landscape scale approach. In the past, the Healthy Forest Restoration Act, which you passed a few years ago, which gave us some streamlined NEPA process, was a very good tool. The problem with that is that it was limited to certain criteria. And so when we looked at larger landscapes, we could use that authority on a piece of the project, but it wouldn't apply to these tens of thousands of acres. Now with the Farm Bill authorities with insect and disease, it gives us some more flexibility to be able to use that approach to looking at just one action alternative and a no action, so we can streamline the process.
Let me ask you on that.
Look at these larger landscapes.
Let me ask you on that, because as we were going to the vote, Senator Stabenow, who's not able to return back to the committee, raised just this issue with me, saying that in the Farm Bill there was additional authorities that were given to do just exactly as you have said. Are these additional authorities being utilized at this point? Are they making a difference?
We're beginning to utilize, especially the CE authority and the Farm Bill. We have projects that are going forward with that. And you'll see, especially in FY16, many of our projects will be implementing, will be using these new authorities. But we often take a year of planning and going through the NEPA before we implement. So you'll see those projects being implemented in 16.
We've got this process that we've got to go through. Is this what you were speaking to, Mr. Isley, Mr. Hallen? Is there any way to expedite that, in your view? You know what you've got to do.
In one of the difficulties that we've had with the Cragen watershed, we do appreciate the opportunity to utilize the Healthy Forest Restoration Act as an alternative to full-scale restoration. We would prefer full-scale restoration, but at this point, we decided to move forward with the Healthy Restoration Act. This watershed, the Forest Service personnel have over 25 years in understanding the types of fires that have occurred on this watershed, where the endangered species are located, and the extent of the watershed itself on those areas that are highly susceptible to wildfire risk. The problem is they have to go through an entire EIS process that essentially is designed, from what I gather and watching staff, is designed to essentially avoid litigation. We know what the issue is. We know that these forests need to be thinned. We know that the greatest threat to those species that the EIS is designed to protect is catastrophic wildfire. But unfortunately, we have to go through the same process another 2 years before we can ultimately get in there and thin those forests.
We hear this story so often that what we're attempting to do is to avoid litigation, and in the meantime, lightning strikes, and we're paying the cost.